Forgive me, my fellow Raptors fans. It's been almost 3 weeks since my last confession when we talked about Win versus Tinker and introduced Armoni Brooks to the Raptors. And boy was I wrong, guys. This is not just a Matt Thomas piece. This is a guy they're really tinkering with and giving a lot of look to. So much so that we're gonna talk about, do the Raptors suit their new Armoni? And in a separate video, you can look for that. I'm also gonna make one about the wall that Twinkle Toes built. We were talking about Precious Achiuwa's task that he needed to perform. And then lastly, in the next day or so, you'll see Malachi practice. Okay, so I got a couple videos coming for you to make up for the void. This particular video is gonna take a look at all of the tinkering that I've made notes about the Raptors doing with the rotation during the month of March. So it's a cool video, and please note, like all my long videos, you can skip ahead or behind or come back to the video and go to any of the timestamps down in the description. So if you want to hear my theory on what they did in the Nuggets game, you can literally skip to that game here. And there are some gems, guys. There are things that were not talked about in the media that took place during the last month, all while we're on a winning streak. People think that because we were winning, we weren't tinkering, but we were doing both. It's super cool. So make sure you check out all of them if you're interested, and let me know if there's things that I've missed. Did you notice something? Are they doing something different? Are they running different plays than they used to that I haven't spoken about? Let me know in the comments, guys, and don't forget to like and sub. To explain our thumbnail here, for those of you that are not nerds like me, the Tinkers are a people in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, which was just the first season, just came out on Amazon Prime. And if you are a true nerd, you know this book series. It's one of the best ones for fantasy ever written. So there you go. Shout out Brandon Sanderson and RIP Robert Jordan. Now I know what a bunch of you guys are thinking. You're thinking, what, have we really been tinkering? Because we've been actually playing pretty reasonably good basketball. But the truth is, if we look at it, and trust me, I watch the games with this kind of lens, we've been tinkering the whole time. But before we get into the tinkering, I think it's important that we discuss a hot button issue, which is this number 6 spot. Is it likely we get into number 6? People are predicting that, you know, Cleveland might fall out. I still don't think they're gonna. They've been performing really well. The same night that we went to OT with the Lakers, Cleveland went to OT and won their game. I encourage you to check it out. In fact, here's a clip of how that game ended right here.
This is, believe it or not, the 7th time that 3 Cavaliers in the same game have recorded a double-double. Wow. Less than a 1 second difference between shot clock and game clock. Garland into Mobley. Mobley puts it up, throws the foul, puts it up and in, and Mobley has a chance for the 3-point play. To Highland, he juiced it, he missed it, and the Cavaliers win.
So yeah, Cleveland is definitely stepping up to the plate to really challenge for that 6th spot. I was thinking maybe the Bulls would fall out, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen either because they're getting back Pat Williams, who we saw, another Leonard Hamilton product. Mwah. Mwah. And they also got back Caruso. So they've got Ball coming back shortly. This is a Bulls team that is looking good, and they are built to be our kryptonite. I do want to do a little tangent though, talking about the play-in tournament, because I'm like you guys. The play-in, of course, scares me, but if you come out of the play-in, you go into the next round with momentum, and the play-in sucks to be a fan of the team that might lose, okay? But it's great for hoops. Like, I love that it gives me my favorite thing about NFL playoff football. Smash mouth, 2 juggernauts come together, smash into each other, 1 game, best team wins, done. It's over. Who comes in with a game plan, executes, and wins the game. This is a game that you could go Kobe for 81 in. There's a team just plays so well, they outmatch the other team and shut down like the team's best player, box and one. So yeah, for these reasons, the play-in excites me and scares me. I know people are gonna totally hate on me. Go for it. Say it in the comments. Tell me you hate the play-in. But I think after the Philly game that we just saw, most of you guys will be like, oh, Ghubbs is so smart. He said we match up against Philly and he wants him in the first round. And we got to see, our Raptors make Embiid run. He was sweating at the line, wasn't he, boys? He was really tired. In fact, saw 2 lineups that we totally exploited where James Harden was the only star on the floor for them. And we could totally destroy them because the game plan took us straight at Tobias Harris early on. And then we made Embiid run. So Harris had too many fouls, so he's on the bench. They brought in Niang, who scored a bit, but we just destroyed him. Look at Niang's plus minus for the night. We destroyed him, minus 22. So this is a team that we can make run. So if we sneak in that 6th spot, ooh, it's so nice. If we get in there, but don't count on it. There's solid teams ahead of us. The Celtics, screw you Celtics. That's what I've got to say. If it weren't for the surge by the Celtics, we would be in the 6th spot already. The Celtics has been on fire, and they have a tough schedule to finish the season. We have a very nice looking schedule to finish the season, and I see people saying Cleveland falling out, maybe Jared Allen's out. I don't know. I just don't know. Let's talk about the tinkering. So I've got an interesting format with you. In this video, I just want to run through the different games since we talked last, where we beat the Nets back to back, and then in the very next games, we lose to Detroit and the Magic of all teams. And I've seen this more and more on fan videos that I've been watching, this notion that why have we got such a good record against winning teams, but such a poor record against the games you gotta win? The rest of Raptors fandom might be wondering, why do we keep losing these games? And I told you my theory on this is that these games, people sleep on the Raptors, and these games are games that get even less scouting because it's not newsworthy. People are less likely to scout those games if the Raptors blow a tire against the Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons. They will come and watch the Raptors sweep the Nets, okay? The Nets games will get watched. And here's what they're gonna say about them. No Durant, no Kyrie, no Ben Simmons. They aren't even gonna look at our roster to realize Freddie didn't even play, and we beat him with Malachi and a bunch of guys that are from our bench. Everybody thinks the Raptors have no depth. The truth is, we got depth. We just always seem to develop it as part of our starting lineup. Tricky. And I know you guys are gonna say, well, why would you throw basketball games? Well, I'm not saying they're throwing basketball games. I'm saying they are simply prioritizing tinkering over wins. That's where those losses come from. If you subscribe to this channel, you are not confused as to why we are not performing well against the mediocre teams. So now we're gonna take a look at the month of March, and I'm gonna show you how the tinkering has gone from moving big puzzle pieces into actually just fine tuning and refining the lineups. And don't forget, we got key guys out all the time. And remember, you can skip ahead or rewind using the chapters below, set out in the description, to take a look at any of the specific games to see what we tinkered with. So we're gonna start after those 2 Brooklyn wins when Malachi is being featured, and then we go to Detroit and Dwayne Casey once again schemes for the entire season to beat the Raptors. What happened in those games? I want you to pay attention to a couple things, because we're not looking for points here. We're looking for who's getting minutes and what type of minutes, what kind of shots are they shooting, who's being played in combination with one another, okay? We're looking for trends in the rotation. And what you'll notice here is, first of all, Detroit is a modern small ball team, and right now they're really featuring Cunningham and Saddiq Bey. So how did the Raptors try to deal with it? What did they try and tinker with? They immediately went big by committee. Everything coming off the bench is long arm monsters, okay? This is pre-Armoni Brooks. And we see the minutes off the bench going to Precious, Boucher, and Banton. And we also see marathon minutes still. This becomes less the case as we start tinkering towards present day. You see Scotty, Trent, and Pascal all getting marathon minutes. Khem's minutes are sitting around 20 as he gets reincorporated back into the lineup at this point. Precious is getting more minutes, so is Boucher, about 13 minutes to Banton. So an 8-player rotation, essentially. And the other thing you wanna see here is the attempts taken by Khem Birch. So here's got 5 attempts, and they're really trying to get him going, okay? So Khem is a major part of this, the other being Malachi. Those are the 2 major pieces that they were working on in Detroit. As we head into Orlando, it's a more balanced Magic attack. And we saw them feature Chuma Okeke and that guy everyone thought they don't like, Mo Bamba, who definitely will be re-signed this year. They love him, and anyone that says differently is crazy. He's not coming to Toronto anytime soon, guys. Against that young Weltman Stables lineup, the Toronto Raptors went with marathon minutes towards Barnes and Pascal and Malachi. Then Malachi, he gets injured in this game, right? We see the bench minutes get spread a lot further. Instead of 3 deep, we go 1, 2, 3, Thad and Yuta deep. That's 5 deep off the bench. That's 10 players deep. And what Nurse is doing here is he's tinkering. He's trying to play around with 2 players that he hasn't played around with since around January, and that's Yuta and Svi. He wants to play around with those guys again and hide it in this Orlando game to try and reincorporate them in to deal with some of the small packages that Orlando was throwing at us and to try and shake up Bamba a bit on switches. And you see Birch's minutes, because we're incorporating him back in, are all the way from 20 down to 9, even though he starts. So this is the thing. Remember at the start of the season, everyone's talking about why is Precious starting? Why is Precious starting? We're losing games. It's not about who starts. It's about the rotation. It's about how the minutes get distributed. Starting's simply less important in a Raptors uniform than you think. It's not about immortalizing their jersey in the rafters so much as it's about who do we want to grind it out at the beginning of the game while we feature our main starters. So Khem's a perfect fit because he doesn't need a lot of touches. And then when we go to our bench, we can bring a guy in like Precious while we rest a Scotty. Then Precious can be featured a little bit. And that's why we're seeing in this month of March, Precious, ever since the All-Star break, really turning it up. Then we have a total heartbreaker in Cleveland, and Cleveland is a massive lineup. Even with Jared Allen out, they're huge. They have not slowed down as a result of losing. They actually have Dean Wade out for a game against them tonight, as well as Jared Allen. So in the game that we played against them, we saw very few minutes get distributed to the bench. We went heavy on Precious, heavy on Thad, just a little bit to Delano, but the bench didn't perform well here. We saw marathon minutes go to Scotty, Gary, P, and Boucher. Most of our rotation is really a 6 to 7 man rotation in this game. The next game up was the Spurs, and we didn't want to give Coach Pop that record win, right? So this is the beginning of the win streak. And it's massive because if you look, the Raptors went back to their regular starting 5, less OG. Okay, so with OG out, this has become the 3 long arm monster lineup. We got 3 long arm monsters, Khem, Siakam, Barnes, with no massive big guy. We're looking to run bigs, and we got to face one of the best running bigs in the league in Jakob Poeltl in this game. So what does Nick Nurse do? He spreads those bench minutes. Remember, the game before against Cleveland, only 2 guys really got any run off the bench. In this game, we get Boucher, Precious, Banton, and Thad, all with major minutes. We see Armoni Brooks come in. He's the only guard off of the bench, which we don't even really see that often. And we see him get 3 minutes. He looked horrendous, like a deer in headlights, fish out of water. It was not pretty. You see Khem's minutes are up, but his attempts are still sitting around like 1, 2, 3 a game. But that's a game we gotta win, right? So this is the type of game everyone's complaining we're not winning. Next up, we went into the Suns, and Ashley had that massive game for Gary Trent Jr. This was a freaking awesome game. You'll remember that we did the same thing. We had this regular starting 5, less OG. We see Precious, Boucher, Thad, and Banton again. It's the same tinkering that we saw in the Spurs game. So it's the same bench tinkering with Khem getting 26 minutes, still no attempts, and then we're dividing the bench with 4 guys. So that's a significant thing. We're 9 deep here. We pull out the win. Okay, next up we get one of my favorite games of the entire month of March, and that's the Denver Nuggets and Jokic. And what they did here was awesome. So look at the starting lineup. It's nothing like what we've seen before. We get Gary Trent Jr. in the forward position with Scotty Barnes handling the rock out of the gate. Precious Achiuwa switches with Khem Birch to go into the lineup and face off against a traditional elite big man in Jokic. This is key. But then the most staggering thing is they start Armoni Brooks and off the ball. And not only that, they give him 20 minutes this game, 21 and a half minutes. And Freddie is miraculously injured again. Why did they do this? He shot 4 threes, he hit 1, he looked like a complete fish out of water on defense, and it was a travesty. We still got the win, but the goal is win second, tinker first. Tinker first is important because it spells better potential results in the playoffs. So Brooks gets the starting job here, plus 21 minutes to just make mistakes like a normal human being and get adjusted to the system. They want to produce videotape for him to review, and what you'll see is in the next couple games his minutes go down. And this is because he's spending more time in the weight room, more time practicing, more time reviewing tape, so that they can insert him back in the lineup later with more minutes again, but he's better adjusted. He's better mentally prepared. This is what the Raptors do. Remember at the beginning of the year when everyone said, why is Precious starting? He's making so many mistakes. Well, those mistakes are largely gone now. This is the same type of development we're replicating with Armoni Brooks. And the Nuggets game proved to be a pivotal one for this reason for Armoni Brooks, but not just that, they also made some adjustments to how they approach the marathon minutes. The marathon minutes get curtailed, except for Scotty's. There's a new trend here. Scotty's minutes are staying high. We're pushing his conditioning all the time in every game. Why? Because we want to break him? No, in an ideal world. If you're running a 10K run, you want to train for 14. This is how we get guys like Embiid huffing and puffing. We went major minutes to Boucher. Precious got in the starting lineup instead of Khem. Khem sat around 20 minutes. This is significant. And Banton even saw 16. So we're still 9 players deep. But when Freddie sits, we still go 3 long arm monsters with the guards being completely tweaked because Armoni and Gary go off ball and we handle the rock with our new long arm monster point forward, Scotty Barnes. And this is against Jokic and the Nuggets. Like, this is a really good game. Jokic is a -4 on the game here. This is one to earmark for tinkering because a new brand of tinkering begins with this Nuggets game. Go back and watch it. If you want to see the development of Precious Achiuwa, you can check out my video that's coming out called The Wall That Twinkle Toes Built. We're going to take a look at Precious's performance in this game and some others. You'll want to make sure you like, subscribe to scratch my back, and definitely hit notifications if you want to know when those videos go up. The next game on the schedule, we got to frustrate the king.
And up with it comes Toronto, and that's Boucher doing work. They've got definitely
the other way. Scotty battling James, and he throws it hard off of Scotty Barnes, and Barnes comes up.
And he got so frustrated in this game that he was losing his shit. The Raptors were under his skin. It was for good reason. A, the Kings not having a fun season, but B, we were really into them. We were hustling right at them. So they went small against us in the first game. So they went Reeves, Johnson, LeBron with Monk and Westbrook, okay? So look at the minutes for the guys off the bench. So they went to the bench, and the major bench guys were Ellington, Horton Tucker, and Carmelo, okay? With Gabriel featured too a little bit. But really they went small. What do we do back to them? Well, we went back to our standard 3 long arm monster lineup, but we're featuring Precious. We want Precious to play against the opposing big, make him run the court, and really move his feet. Again, you'll see me feature it more in the Precious video with clips. He doesn't leave his feet anymore. On defense, he's no longer jumping in the air, okay? And this is a major, major tinker. It seems like nothing, but it's major. I'm not kidding. Watch for it tonight. We feature Boucher. Why? Because we hustled at the Lakers. We hustled right at them. Thad looked pretty good in this game, but I would say this is about the game where Thad, to me, just started looking disengaged. Okay, so that's something to note when you're watching the game tonight. Does Thad look ready? Does he look hungry? Does he look like a guy that's like inspired to like play well? He just looks shocked by passes. He's like dropping, you know, granted these are no looks by like Pascal and Scotty and Freddie, but he just doesn't look ready to catch the ball and score, okay, to me right now, whereas he did when he first came into the lineup. So you'll notice Brooks's numbers, his minutes are all the way down to 3 minutes. And this is just an indication of what I said before, is that his main priority after that 21-minute game against the Nuggets is to review tape and still get a little bit of rotation minutes to work on some things live in the games and come off the ball on screens and work on getting some shots up. But his main focus is really in the practice and development category during this stretch. and Khem's minutes are down to 11. As I said, you also have to pay attention to Khem Birch. What I want you to watch now is his attempts begin to change. His shot attempts begin to change over the next few games. And not only that, we start to see something from Khem Birch that we haven't seen since this time a year ago. It's coming up. So these are pretty significant tweaks that are being done to the Raptors lineup in these games. And this first Lakers game, the Lakers slept on us. They weren't ready for us. And the next time we see them, they look very different. So keep an eye on it. Next up, this is one of the most important games from a tinkering standpoint of the entire season, in my opinion. And it's the game against the Clippers. Why do I say it's so important? Well, the Clippers are a balanced team with two bigs, and they got two different styles. So they got Zubac, who we love playing against. I know you guys think we need a traditional big man, but Zubac is the type of big man we're built to make run and exhaust. So we got Zubac. So what they actually did was counter it with Isaiah Hartenstein. Even though he's not elite, he's a key type of player because he can run against us and not get fatigued. Okay, so Hartenstein's the type of center, like a Plumlee, that usually really is our kryptonite. He's like a Vucevic, like I said earlier in the video. So it was a good test because in this game, in the Clippers game, the Raptors stumbled upon how to really abuse these types of guys. So what we see minutes-wise in this game is kind of standard. We've got our standard 3 long-arm monster lineup. You'll notice Khem is back in the starting lineup, but what do you see off the bench? You see Precious, you see Thad, and then you see Armoni Brooks up to 8 minutes, nothing else. But what we saw in this game was the emergence of how we're gonna deal with these bigs that can run with us on the small teams. So the Charlottes, the Atlanta Hawks, the Celtics, if we have to face them. And what we did, even when we had to play in the half court, is we sought to get switches where Pascal Siakam was on that center. And then he just would go right at them and abuse them. And they couldn't handle him. So Pascal is going to be the weapon against these running bigs in the half court set. And I'm telling you, this Clippers game was just such an important game in terms of how we deal with those bigs. And then we get back to Toronto for this amazing, epic game against the Lakers. And did the Lakers look like they got out hustled in this game? I haven't seen LeBron work this hard in years. They really wanted to beat us. And look at their lineup. Look at the difference in their lineup in this game compared to how they started against us before. This is a massive lineup. So they went LeBron, Gabriel, Howard, Monk, and Westbrook. And then their major minutes off the bench were Stanley Johnson. Okay? So Melo didn't even play, I don't think. Horton Tucker didn't even play. So then for us, marathon minutes don't really count here because we're into overtime, but ultimately Birch didn't even see 20 minutes. This was all about Precious Achiuwa, and look at our bench, okay? So you saw Boucher, Achiuwa, barely any Banton or Birch really, and Thad Young, and Thad started to look a little bit rough in my opinion. So really this was all about Precious Achiuwa joining the starting 5 for basically the entire game. The Lakers earned the victory. They got a couple good bounces. They got some LeBron James favorable calls, but this was a great game. It showed us that we can deal with these big teams. And how do we do it? Just by getting Precious to move his feet, stay in front of guys, and build that wall, but by himself. After the Lakers, we see the matchup that I've been telling you I wanted in the first round for ages, and that's the Sixers, guys. Anyone that was in the comments with me saying, oh, I don't know, it scares me, the Sixers scares me. The Sixers lineup on paper scares me too, until you look at what the Raptors do well. And I already showed you clips of Embiid huffing and puffing and tired out from playing us. It is awesome. We had amazing performances by guys throughout the lineup, but the level of tinkering in this game got completely lost. No one even really talked about the brand new look that Nick Nurse threw together for this. And he's been doing it for the last couple games. In this Sixers game, yes, we executed a season-long game plan to make a traditional elite big run the floor more than they want to, using marathon minutes and giving that pawn, okay? Like sacrificing that pawn. We let Embiid get under the rim all game in the early game. And they totally took the bait. He was tired. They had to go to Jordan. We got fouls on Jordan. We got fouls on Tobias Harris, and it caused them to play a lineup that featured James Harden and a bunch of bench guys, and they couldn't compete with us. It was a great, well-executed game plan. But the thing I want you that's staggering is look at the starting lineup. It's Scotty Barnes in the 1, Gary Trent in the 2, Khem Birch at the 5, Precious and Pascal playing the forward spots, and trust me, Precious is not used to this. This is a new thing for him. Boucher's minutes are ultimately marathon minutes. Thad plays okay. Armoni Brooks is featured at 14 minutes, and he actually came in and looked great. This was Armoni's best game, not just because he shot 2 threes very quickly from deep. It's also his best game because he's starting to look good on defense. And in the video I'll roll out for you, talking about our new Armoni, we'll talk more about how he looked in this lineup. But suffice to say, this new look from the Raptors was a major piece of tinkering. That brings us to the Bulls game. And like I said, the Bulls are our kryptonite. How can we deal with such a small, guard-heavy lineup where they also have traditional big men down the middle, which is hard for us? And not only that, Vooch is the type that is well conditioned. He's not going to get tired running the court like Embiid will. Okay, so this is a tough lineup for us, and they're getting healthy with Caruso and Patrick Williams back. This was a tough lineup. They can all shoot from mid-range, which is a hole in our defense, the way we play defense quite often. They stuck with the same combination of Khem and Precious. So Precious getting this new training, these new minutes at a forward spot. And this is really new for him because what we need him to do is we need him to move his feet faster, okay? So if he's got to move his feet X fast to deal with Embiid and Jokic, now he's got to move his feet even faster to deal with power forwards and traditional small forwards, okay? So now we're looking at him dealing with wings, okay? This is a much tougher assignment. Now, side development of this recent combination of playing Khem and Precious together has been that Precious's newfound ability to hit three-pointers has actually created space for Khem Birch. Precious is now able to drive the baseline on his own with a couple dribbles, which most big men can't do, but he's also hitting shots from outside if he can keep his feet in bounds, and that's opening up space for Khem. Khem Birch has shot three-pointer attempts in the last 2 games, which is way beyond what he's done ever since the spring of 2021. And last year, Khem got to a point where he was hitting some of these. This is very good for the Raptors lineup, and Khem hasn't just increased his 3-point attempts, he's increased his attempts in general. Very good news for Raptors fans. And if you're paying attention like me, you can actually see Khem, instead of practicing mid-range shots, he's now in all shoot-arounds practicing from 3 exclusively. You'll notice the bench only went 3 deep in this game. Okay, so Armoni, Thad, and Boucher, that's an 8-man rotation. In the Philly game, we sat Freddie and rested Freddie. In this game, we rested GTjr. And the Bulls, with this small lineup, came at us really quickly, and they can keep Levine or DeRozan on the court at all times, which is just such a tough lineup. This is the type of team that is our kryptonite right here. So what can we expect from the Cleveland game tonight? We have Gary Trent Jr. listed as day-to-day, OG and Malachi still listed as out. Cleveland with Dean Wade, who, don't underestimate that loss for them. He played massive minutes against us last time and played really well. But the big one for them is Jared Allen out, Colin Sexton's obviously out for the season, and Rondo. So this is a Cleveland team that we struggle with. They're very big, but don't be shocked to see some combination of Khem and Precious in the starting lineup again together. I'm going to say you're going to see Armoni Brooks featured in this game. He's going to get at least 10 to 14 minutes is my guess, and they're going to be playing him off the ball. They want him lofting up these shots like we've seen him doing in the last 2 games. Watch for the videos that are coming out. You're going to see, do the Raptors suit their new Armoni? You're going to see the wall that Twinkle Toes built, and you're going to see Mal practice. All right, so cheers, enjoy the Cleveland game, and thank you so much to those of you that reached out to say hello. I miss you too. So let's get in the comments, and trust me, I'm not missing minutes of basketball. I'm watching a lot of hoops right now while I'm focused on my day job. Cheers, and remember, it's all about the Larrys. Kawhi, what do you make of all this tinkering, buddy?
I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Of course you don't see me there.
This is Chef's Kiss approved. Mwah!